If you own a short-term rental in New South Wales or are looking at setting one up, it is important that you understand the New South Wales regulations. My name's Sean, and together with my team at Hometime, we manage Australia's biggest collection of short-term rentals. So let's kick it off with a bit of history. In 2021, the New South Wales government set up some rules for short-term rental accommodation in New South Wales. Why did they do this? Essentially, the likes of Airbnb, Stays, Booking.com were absolutely growing in popularity across the state, and this was at odds with the long-term rental market and the housing crisis that was at hand. So the government come in and created a number of rules and a registry to really monitor the short-term rental space and the impacts it was having on the economy and the population as a whole. The first and easiest part of these rules is you must register your property on the short-term rental accommodation website. So that's a nice easy form, takes a couple of minutes. It's pretty much one of those guaranteed approval forms, pay the money and register. When you register, it will give you a unique number that is required when you're setting your property up on Airbnb, Booking.com or Stays. Now, out of the rules that come out, the biggest rule that's impacted the short-term rental market is the 180 night cap. So essentially it limits how many nights a year a property can be booked and rented out on the short-term market. Now, a couple of things in this regard. First of all, the 180 night cap isn't the cap on how many nights the property can be advertised, but instead how many nights it can actually be booked. So what that means in real terms is you could book it 10, 15 nights a month, and essentially provided the total nights doesn't exceed 180, you can advertise it as available year round. So that's the first really important concept to understand about this 180-day cap. The other part about the 180-day cap is there are some exceptions to this rule, and understanding these exceptions is a really important thing in order to maximize your revenue when it comes to short-term rental properties. The first exception to this rule is rural areas. So if you're looking at investing somewhere like the Blue Mountains, for example, or outside of the Greater Sydney region, there is a chance that the 180-day cap may not apply to your property. So best to check the latest information on the STRA website or with the local government in that area to see if the 180-night cap does apply where you're looking. If you are looking at setting up a property in the Greater Sydney area, Bondi, Manly, Sydney CBD, then the 180-day cap will apply. The second big exception is strata buildings. It is possible for strata buildings in New South Wales to fully exclude short-term rentals completely. If you are looking at setting up a short-term rental in a strata building in a unit complex, check with your body corporate manager whether short-term rentals are allowed in that building, as this is something you don't want to get caught out with. There's nothing worse than going and spending $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 on furniture, going to the effort and putting your heart and soul into setting a property up, only to later find out that the body corporate actually doesn't allow short-term rentals in that building. So check it out with your body corporate manager and just make sure that that box is ticked before you proceed too far down the path. Now, the third exception is the absolute game changer and is what makes short-term rentals so viable in the Greater Sydney region, and that is bookings over 21 nights are exempt from the 180-day cap. This means that you can book out your 180 nights of short stays, 3, 4, 5, 10-night stays, and then supplement those short-term stays with longer 23, 24, 25-night bookings and really boost your occupancy and your overall returns throughout the year. Let me break this down a little bit further for you just to really sort of cement this concept of how this exception around 21-night or greater stays really impacts the occupancy rates throughout the year. So you can have a 22-night booking in February, a 25-night booking in June, another 25-night booking in September, and then finish the year strong with a 28-night booking in December. And in total, you would have gained an extra 100 nights of bookings that are exempt from the 180-night cap. From there, you've got that solid 100 nights of long-term bookings. You can then use the 180 nights to fill in the gaps in between those long bookings. And in total, you could end up with 280 nights of that property being booked per year by securing a number of longer-term bookings throughout the calendar year. So what's some strategies that we use to really maximise returns in the Greater Sydney area and other areas in New South Wales impacted by the 180 night cap? The first one is that we apply a discount to those stays longer than 21 nights. If you think about how a typical short-term rental calendar books out, you might have a 3-night booking, a 6-night booking, a 1 or a 2-day gap, and then a 4-night booking. Essentially, there is always going to be naturally formed vacancies and empty nights between each booking. And the reality is to achieve any more than 6 nights a week in bookings is very hard to achieve. 6 nights a week averages out to be 85% occupancy. So if we're attracting those longer 21 night plus stays, we can offer a 15% discount automatically, and it's not going to impact your bottom line and going to start to make that property more attractive for those guests coming to those regions for longer time periods. That could be someone coming in for work. That could be someone that's visiting family because they've just had a baby. That could be someone that's doing an insurance claim because their house is just flooded because of a burst pipe. So there's lots of different reasons someone will be coming to the region for longer than 21 nights. And by applying a discount, we can really attract in those guests and secure those bookings. The other strategy in that same form is looking at how many of the 180 nights we've used. And then there is times where we get very aggressive with that 21 night discount to really attract in those bookings. So we might end up at a 20, 30 or even a 40% discount just to secure those longer bookings and make sure the property's not sitting there vacant for extended periods of time because we've capped out on the maximum short-term nights available to us. The second strategy we use is looking at what's actually happening in the region. So for Sydney, we're looking at things like the NRL finals, Taylor Swift coming to town, Sydney Vivid or New Year's Eve, and making sure those busier times of the year that we're really making the most of them and charging the highest possible nightly rate during those periods. So during those higher period times, you may not actually apply the 21 night discount at all because we know we're going to get a much higher rate from people coming only for 3 or 4 nights during that period of time. Overall, these rules are a big deal to investors looking at being in the short-term market in New South Wales, and having a really good conceptual understanding of both how these rules come into play and then what strategies we can use to overcome them is crucial in succeeding in the short-term rental space in New South Wales. A great example of this is our team at Home Time have achieved 84% occupancy in the New South Wales Sydney market over the last 2 years, where the industry average for Airbnb is 53%. So you can see that drastic difference between how our management outperforms the market by being strategic and using the exemptions with the 21 night rules and those other different tactics to really drive occupancy and returns in that market. If you'd like to learn more about Home Time and the services we offer, absolutely reach out to the team. Our team is dedicated to making sure your property succeeds in the short-term rental space.